Men behind the curtain podcast. Men behind the curtain podcast. Hello and welcome to a special Wednesday edition of Men Behind the Curtain, the podcast about everything and nothing all at once. I am Pitt.
I'm Eli. How's it going, y'all?
And you're maybe wondering why Wednesday? Well, Thanksgiving tomorrow. So there you go. That's why.
And even though by the time y'all watch this, it's already been a week old, I have to. I'm a little proud of my boys for once. I was not expecting to win that game, but we did. So
listen, I'm not making excuses, but it is hard to see white jerseys in a fucking blizzard.
That's fair. And also, let's see, I'm trying to turn a light on here. Oh, helps I have my hand on the right button. Okay, that didn't help the way that I thought it would. So y'all can see, so I'm actually wearing my blazer, so I wanted to remind y'all, that's a little bit better. I wanted to remind y'all that, this coming Sunday, it's a week from today as we're recording it, but by the time y'all watch it, it'll be, 4 days from then? But I wanted to remind y'all that Valmont, Black Raven Chronicles, will be on Spotify and other listening services Sunday the 1st. As a reminder, I will be doing another live stream on TikTok with as many of my co-hosts as possible, including, that was the wrong direction, but including Pitt.
I'm like Roy Kent. He's here, he's there, he's every fucking where. Roy Kent, Roy Kent.
But part of the reason why I was wearing this is just a little bit of a preview, because I also have my white blazer and jacket, so I'll be a little bit more in character next week.
You know what? Let's give him a little bit of preview now. Why don't you go ahead and give us Chuckles, Mr. Leslie Simon?
So for the first episode, it's very brief. It's a little more than a cameo because I'm just leaving a voicemail. But one of the bits of dialogue, actually, you know what? Let me find it, because Jackie wrote it, and it was a really good way for me to try to find the voice. Let me find it here in Discord, because I actually asked them to pin it. All right. So, of course, I've got my prop cigar.
You could have a real one.
I can, but honestly, I would end up smoking the cigar, and then I need to get another one and then another one. So just for looks, the prop is sufficient.
You make that sound like it's a problem.
Money.
That's the benefits of being a cigar sommelier at a cigar lounge.
But so this is the bit of dialogue that Jackie wrote. Technically, this is not a spoiler because we'd never used this specifically in the show, although we do use something similar to it. Just, mon ami Valmont, you sort of realize by now that I stay 3 moves ahead. All of them want to play checkers, les imbeciles. This is chess, and I shall always win against the police, against the criminals, against les vampires. Au revoir, frère.
Very nice. Very good. There you have it, everybody. That is Leslie Chuckles Simon from Valmont, the Black Raven Chronicles, of course, voiced by the very talented Eli.
And for any of y'all who want to pick that apart, that was a little bit, it may have been a little choppy because it was on the spot. I usually do about 2-3 takes to try to get it right. So fuck y'all.
Speaking of on the spot, let's go right into the catastrophe. We'll come back to talk about Valmont a little bit more here coming up after this. Yep. But we're going to dig into the anal cavity of the feline and pull out.
Remind y'all, drink your fucking water and hydrate.
Well, this one's a couple weeks off, but it still rings true. Springfield, Ohio.
So, for those of y'all who do not know this, I'm like 20 minutes from Springfield. He's probably closer to an hour, just because you're like you're about a half hour from me. So we know people
that long to get here.
It depends on traffic, and it depends how lead-footed I want to be.
Are you driving Miss Daisy?
Again, it depends on traffic. 75 sucks.
True. That's why I don't take 75.
But so we're not far from Springfield. We have friends that are in Springfield. We've spent a good amount of time in Springfield. And I can tell you it first of all, I want to point out now that we are post-election, notice nobody's talking about Springfield, which means nobody gave a fuck in the first place. It was a prop. But I mean, it's not really that serious. Although I do have a friend who actually recorded a couple fucking chuckle fuck wannabe Nazis doing a rally up there. AJ, he actually posted a video on Facebook. He was driving past them, and I would like to point out that even though I believe AJ does fall more on the conservative side, he was still telling them that they are not welcome there, and he was telling them to leave. And of course, they still want to be Billy Badass and did their little salute and all that shit. Here's the part that I keep waiting to happen just while I'm on that subject. Did you ever see the episode of South Park when they wanted to change the town flag?
Yes.
Do you remember when the Klan showed up? And even though the Klan was on the, I guess we'll call it conservative side because they were in favor of not changing the flag, eventually all the townspeople were like, you know what? I don't want to be on the same side of history as the fucking Klan. And I keep waiting for that moment to arrive in real life, and I don't think it's coming.
No, I don't think it is either. Yeah, I've got so many things I can say about those fucking cunts, but we're not going to go into that because the topic is Springfield, Ohio. And I don't know. For me, Springfield is a wannabe Youngstown.
I can see that.
Well, you know, to me, that's just what it is. Every time I've been there, it's like, oh, this reminds me so much of Youngstown. This reminds me, no matter what. I mean, you've got your mom and pop pizza places that are really good, but then you take the wrong turn, you're into like, really shit area. And I don't mean shit as in like, really bad, crime ridden and whatnot, but it's like the upkeep of some of the buildings and whatnot. And it's rather sad. It's not that these people don't try. It's just the fact that it's a very impoverished area that everybody is working 2-3 jobs just to be able to pay their mortgage, and the rest of the stuff can't go into the upkeep of their property. That would be my thoughts on the matter. But yeah, to me, Springfield is just wanting to be another Youngstown, and just like Dayton just wants to be another Youngstown. So
honestly, Dayton wants to be anything that's not Dayton.
You got like one good section, and it's right by the river, which is more polluted than any other river that I've known, other than the Cuyahoga, because that caught on fire several times.
I will point out, so up around where Good Sam used to be, if you go down that street on Philadelphia, there actually are some really nice houses. And my mom pointed out one time that the reason for that is probably because way back when it was customary when doctors were on call, they wanted to live close to where they worked. So those houses that are on Philadelphia that are nice were probably doctors' houses. If you drive down there, they're really fucking nice. It's a nice little pocket of Dayton in an otherwise shithole.
Yeah, no, some of the houses in the neighborhoods are really nice, and then all of a sudden you drive out to that main drag, like Main Street, which is 48, and it's just like the graffiti on the side of a CVS or something like that. But the houses off on the side streets are like, holy crap, it's immaculate. Well maintained yards and stuff like that. I dated a girl who's I don't want to say it was her parents or aunt and uncle. They had a house over there and whatnot. It was there several times, and holy shit, nice house. Actually, reminded my grandparents' house in Cleveland. And it was just one of those things. It's like, hey, this is actually a pretty nice area to live in. And then I made a wrong turn, and I ended up, seeing some graffiti that it's like, oh, that looks awfully familiar. I'm pretty sure that was the gang tagging things that do whatever. So.
Also, I just noticed this. Shout out to the Christmas Grogu back there.
Oh, yes, Grogu over my left shoulder.
Yeah.
So, all right. The worst part of being an adult.
Oh, God. Fucking bills. easily.
Yeah.
And honestly, all of them, because like I fucking whether you pay mortgage or you pay rent, like fuck, I just want to fucking live.
Yeah, no, bills and all other expenditures, absolutely the worst part. However, I feel as I get older, particularly after the pandemic, that by the time I'm in my 60s, I'm going to be that fucking old ass motherfucker that wakes up at 3:30 in the fucking morning, has a pound of bacon cooked by fucking 5, and goes to bed at fucking 7.
I love that idea, except that the way my brain is set up, I'm so nocturnal. A lot of nights I don't go to bed before midnight. I regret it every fucking morning, but my brain just does not shut down. I can't.
know. I'm one of those people that needs something, stronger than coffee, but not as illegal as cocaine. So that's pretty much how my mornings go. It's like, and coffee is pretty much out of fucking habit now. It's like this does nothing for me. So, but it's like I've done this for like the last, several decades. That it's now just a morning routine.
What I have actually been meaning to try is that for a very long time, I thought the reason coffee didn't work on me is because, I'm a big guy. Spoiler alert for those of y'all who weren't aware of this, I am fat. I know I hide it well, but I am fat. So I just assumed that coffee doesn't work on me because I'm a bigger guy and I need, quote unquote, a bigger dosage. However, I learned in recent years, after discovering that I'm probably neurodivergent, coffee does not work on neurodivergent people. It actually does the opposite. So I've been meaning to test that and try to drink some before I go to bed and see if that works. Which that also explains why ZQuil doesn't work, or melatonin. That shit, I have a 15-minute window. It does make me a little bit drowsy, but after that 15-minute window, I'm fucked. I'm awake.
Not try alcohol.
That can work too.
Yeah. No, because it's interesting, because it's funny that you bring that up. As when I was working as a mental health therapist, I had a client who was severely ADHD, and the only way he can get his brain to slow down was he would actually eat the coffee grounds. Yeah. And that was the only way he can get his brain to slow down and for him to be able to think clearly. And we're only talking for like a matter of like a couple hours. So it was several times a day that, he was eating these coffee grounds. But yes, caffeine to somebody who is neurodivergent actually acts as a depressive instead of a stimulant. It's just the way the brain's wired.
Yeah. So my initial assessment could have been right. It could have been that. It could be a little bit of both. I don't know. I just know it doesn't work on me.
Yep. All right. If you could open a business, what would it be?
Honestly, probably gaming. You know what? I'll take that a step further. There's a place here by my house, Clarkade. There's actually two used video game stores and they sell a lot of especially vintage stuff. What Clarkade does, which is really unique, is they also have a lot of old school arcade games. He used to do consoles and have like little tournaments and shit in house. I never got a chance to go, but the arcades are really cool. The last time that I was there, it was like $7 an hour. You can play all the arcades as much as you want. $20 you can play from open to close any arcade game. And when I say that they specialize in vintage, these guys have the first 4 original Mortal Kombats on arcade. He has Ninja Turtles, with the old school theme, Teenage Mutant Ninja. That he has the Simpsons. Remember the game where they kidnap Maggie and the whole family? Like Bart is using his fucking skateboard as a weapon, and Marge is using a vacuum cleaner. He has that.
Shit.
Fucking Terminator 2 with the little fucking Uzi on the thing, and you're just tracking it. He's got that. So I would love to open up a business like that. What I would probably prefer to do is more the actual consoles. So you can pay me $10 for an hour and I'll set you up on a PlayStation here. You can play whatever game that I have in house. I would probably do something like that.
I'd be there. I'd be broke, but I'd be there.
I would love it. I actually just came out here earlier. I have a backlog of games. I finally finished Jedi Survivor. Actually, let me back that up. I finished the story to Jedi Survivor probably 2 weeks ago. I have been exploring since then. And I finally decided I've done enough. I have all of my skill points. I've unlocked everything. I'm done. So I'm moving on. And I actually still have Shadow of Mordor and Shadow of War. I've never played them. I own them, never played them.
Nope, sounds like you got free time because the holiday's coming up.
Yeah, and since we got Thursday, Friday off, I mean, we're gonna have our daughter home, and like, yeah, I'll spend some time with her, but I'm also gonna spend time out here doing that.
Let's see, business. I actually have 2 businesses I would open up. First one would be a maker space. And basically, it would have a building where people can come in and, plug their laptops in and hook up to 3D printers or do some woodworking or metal work and stuff like that, to where they can come in and do their own crafts, stuff like that. There would be certain supplies. They can bring their own supplies, things of that nature. And, you can 3D print. You can, build a desk. Or you can forge whatever you want, steel, leather, whatever. So the first one would be a makerspace. The second one would actually be an apothecary. And when I mean an apothecary, I mean an actual apothecary, where you can come get your witch's goods and things of that nature. However, it would have like a community garden and greenhouse where you can actually come in after hours, plant, take what you need and stuff like that back and forth. There'd, of course, be all the herbs and everything inside that you would absolutely need, but it would be an apothecary.
So it's funny you mentioned that, like the 3D printing and everything. So I keep meaning to reach out to the guy who's running our current D&D campaign. So he does 3D printing. He made a video on TikTok. He actually offered to send this to me. So for those of y'all who don't play D&D, so we have these things called a rolling tray. This is something you can put your dice in so that it doesn't roll off the fucking table. He made a rolling tray of the One Ring.
Oh.
And like I saw that, I'm like, holy fucking shit, this is cool. He offered to send it to me. And at first I was a little bit skeptical because of the fact that, he's not a stranger on the internet, but I only know him online. I'm like, do I want to give my address? But you know what? I'm like, honestly, I own this house. Because I own this house, that means if you know my name and if you know the county that I live in, I'm not hard to find. So fuck it. I was going to message him. I just forgot to. But yeah. So the makers thing, he does a lot of 3D printing. If y'all want to check him out, one of his TikToks is called Maji, M-A-J-I. Maji makes things. So I'll put that in the description.
Yeah. I got a friend that I used to work with in an office that's 3D printed his own dice tower. Ooh. Yeah, and you load from the top, comes out the bottom door, and into the little area. But yeah,
actually, you know what? Real quick before we move on, I mentioned this a long time ago, and I never got a chance to show it. I'd mentioned like my dice that I have. This is probably going to be freaking bright.
Oh shit!
Oh geez,
you're now white again.
You can see that a little bit.
That's better. There you go.
So I just want to show, like, these are the dice that I have. These are metal. So just like when I was showing y'all my Mjolnir over here, this is my D20. Heavy as fuck.
For dice. Didn't break the desk.
Mjolnir, I wouldn't have been surprised.
All right. And our last random catastrophe. Best cold drink. Best cold weather drink.
Apple cider, and I will die on this hill. I don't mind. I do not mind pumpkin spice. I have had a few pumpkin spice flavored things that were not terrible. I don't think that it's a bad flavor. I think it's fucking overrated. Apple cider is and has always been the superior fall drink, and I will absolutely throw hands on this. This is not the hill I will die on. This is the hill I will kill you on.
I can get behind apple cider. I like apple cider, but I'm gonna get a little bougie here, and this just might be the white in me. No, it's not pumpkin spice, but other than hot chocolate, because that's just something you have as a kid. And that's very nostalgia and whatnot. But chai tea latte, and I know chai and tea are the same fucking thing, but it's called a chai tea latte. And yeah, I'm gonna go bougie on you because for me, with the spices and everything that's in it, it tastes like Yule. If you were to actually take the season and eat it, Yule tastes like a chai tea latte.
You know what? I'm not mad at that because I believe one of the more bougie coffee shops around here, Winans, I believe they have a chai tea latte. I've tried it before.
It's very good.
It is. So I'm not mad at that.
Props to Winans. Here's your free advertising.
I actually have a gift card to them that I keep forgetting to use. well, the prop.
I know what your white elephant gift is going to be.
When is that again?
The 14th.
I might be able to make that. I know we go on vacation. We leave on the 15th.
Now everybody on the internet knows when you're not going to be home.
Fuck. But I have security here, so I'll know. But anyway, moving on.
I've got a dog nose sneaking into frame.
Which one?
That's Loki. But yeah,
I see a Kaz hand in the background.
Yeah, she's gaming as usual. But yeah, so the chai tea latte. But we talked at the top of the episode about Valmont, and we got a little bit of chuckles and stuff like that. But I want to bring in a little bit more about the fact that it drops on December 1st. And of course, we're planning on the listening party, live streaming off your feed. But let's get into how you stumbled upon this particular role, which eventually brought me into it.
So, so it started off, it was a mutual friend through a mutual friend through a mutual friend. So essentially, there's one creator that I follow on TikTok. Her name is Tabs. She is a self-published author. I actually beta read one of her books, which I thought was really good. Actually, you might like it too. I think she's actually on Wattpad. I'll message you afterwards, but basically, like, she incorporates a lot of the old pantheons, Norse, Greek, Egyptian. Essentially, they all coexist, and people can actually be like dedicants to some of the deities there, and go to a school for them and learn certain abilities and yada yada yada. It's really, it reminds me a little bit of Percy Jackson in that the ancient pantheon still exists in the modern day. Now, I have not read or watched any Percy Jackson, so that is as far as my analogy goes, because I don't know shit else about that franchise.
So it's like Percy Jackson meets American Gods.
That's actually not a bad way to put it. I haven't watched American Gods either. I know I should, but I've seen enough clips and everything to get at least the premise of it. But so getting back on topic, so through Tabs, I met another person, Alicia, on TikTok. And I think now Alicia likes to go live on TikTok sometimes while she's working. It kind of helps her from like doom scrolling on her phone when she's supposed to be working. So she'll be on her computer, but talking to her phone. And I'll sometimes hop on with her. And I happen to be in there at the same time as our assistant director, Jackie. We've mentioned her several times before. We've dropped her YouTube here and her TikTok in previous videos in the descriptions. And at some point, I don't know how or why, but Jackie heard me do, my Gollum impression. Just like, it burns us. She heard me do, it was either Gollum or it may have been Peter Griffin. Hey, everybody. It may have been one or the other or both. And Jack, and I think I might have said something about how I like the idea of voice acting, and Jackie was just, hey, you know what? Because Jackie was already involved with it, and to shortcut a couple of extra steps that happened, I eventually got introduced to Jonathan Phoenix, our director and author, and he just handed me a like some sample scripts. Now, being brand new to this, I've never done voice acting before. I wasn't really comfortable trying out for the main part. I'm like, I don't want to do that. So I decided, let me find like some supporting role, something that's maybe a little bit more second tier. And then I started doing Chuckles. Um, the accent wasn't well. Had to have some conversation with him first, like, what is your vision? How do you see this character? And he was perfectly okay with me personalizing it a little bit. But when he said that he sees it as more of a cage, and I'm like, no, I like that. I'm keeping that. And I've just done my best to try to approximate the voice. Props to Jackie. She's done a lot with trying to help me find it. Um, I would say that what I'm doing is not a perfect Cajun, but I think it's a passable Cajun. Um, Now, Frank, honestly, Frank, I was just doing just to kind of help fill things out. But as I was doing it, and especially as I got more to the voice for it, um, I'm like, no, I'm keeping this one. I like this character. Which, as far as the voice for Frank, I know I've mentioned it before. The way that I found it, I've mentioned before that I was playing God of War, and I kept trying to approximate the voice for Kratos. I can't do Kratos, but I got really close. Again, passable. So the line for Kratos that I kept rehearsing, this is from God of War Ragnarok, where he's talking to Freya, and he's talking about his upbringing. He says, be glad you have a home to remember fondly. In Sparta, we were taken from our homes as children and raised in the Yagoi. We marched till we drowned, fought for scraps or starved. Our elders beat us until we could not stand. At night, we made our way home, alone, or food for wolves. That is how Spartans are made. And I started using that a little bit with Frank. Now, what I was also doing with Frank initially, I put a little Dusty Rhodes on it, the Southern swagger, the lisp, and everything. But Frank is supposed to be a fucking big mountain of a man. Think Michael Clark Duncan.
Yeah.
Dusty Rhodes doesn't work for Michael Clark Duncan. So I started trying to deepen the voice a little bit. It was deeper, but you could still hear too much of me. So once I found that voice, the Kratos, which is not really Kratos, but I blended that with the Dusty Rhodes thing, and that's kind of how I got to the voice for Frank. I had a lot of fun with that, though.
Yeah, well, I mean, even just sitting at the table reads, and one of my favorite things is, especially when I hear Chuckles and Frank having a conversation back and forth, and there's no stoppage time in between you speaking. It's like, shit, that's fucking awesome.
That was one of the first things that somebody mentioned. I think it was in episode 2, like where I'm doing for the table read. I'm switching back and forth between Frank and Chuckles. And Frank took me a little bit because that is coming from in here, like where I'm pulling that voice from. So being able to switch back and forth, I didn't know if I could do it, but I managed to. But to bring the story to a finish, I mean, I know me and you were just talking one time, and I mentioned it. At the moment, this is all pro bono work, which is partly why I didn't mention it. I wasn't sure if you would want to do it because essentially this is a little bit more than a hobby for all of us. But it was like once you said like you're cool with it and you want in, all right, fuck it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I spending the time in radio and having a theater background and stuff like that, it was always fun to play multiple characters and mess with the voice. I mean, when when Jonathan gave me the part, it's like when I first did it, I was asking just a little bit of background on the character, and he's like, well, he's a cop. He's, lived in South Carolina his entire life. This is the area he grew up in. I probably spent about a good 2-3 hours that day searching through YouTube on South Carolinian accents, and I did not realize, and there might be more, but I came across like 7, 8 different South Carolinian accents. Like there's a northern accent, there's like a southern accent, there's one more for the middle of the state, there's one for the mountain region, and it's like, oh shit. So I kind of settled more on the northern one because it's closer to my dialect, closer to that, New England accent that, most reporters speak in. But it was one of those things that it's like, it was easier to pull off because to me, the South Carolinian accent is pretty close to the North Carolinian accent, which would make sense since it's, particular same region, they border each other and whatnot. But it's just a little easier to pull off. But I'm like, every time I kept doing it, it's like, it just doesn't sound like a cop. It's like, this sounds like a guy that I want to go out and have a beer with. And that's when, my wife was like, she's like, he's a cop. He's authoritative. I'm like, okay, he's going to speak that way. And I'm trying to think. And she's like you're talking to your kids. I'm like, oh.
Well, that'll definitely help. However, we've all seen memes about it before. As a dad, I can attest to the truth of it. A good chunk of being a dad is just staring at your fucking kids like this.
Yep.
Until they fucking act right.
But that was great because I wish I had a camera on me when I was doing the voiceovers because I'm pretty sure I had that whole stare as in like, I had the whole probably Red Foreman stare as in like, you dumbass, But I'd have to say, doing the table read for episode 5 with
that was so much fun.
Kings of Hell. So I picked up an additional character to play, which I'm going to have to say is by far my favorite character that I voice throughout every single episode. And again, wish I had a camera on me because I was sitting back behind going like,
I could imagine you doing that.
Oh, it was such a blast. So definitely check out Valmont, the Black Raven Chronicles, episode 1 dropping December 1st on all your streaming platforms, and stick around so you can hear that Kings of Hell. If you want to get just a snippet of it, if you check out Jackie's TikTok page, she does have a very small segment of the Kings of Hell conversation going on.
I absolutely love her enthusiasm because she's not even partaking in that scene.
I thought she was going to have an orgasm. I seriously did. Her face was like
she was having so much. She was enjoying it so much. So I love seeing her just her enthusiasm, her excitement with it and everything. So yeah, Jackie is definitely one that I am really, really wanting to be up on the panel next week. Because this is Jackie, I'm going to have to tell her to behave so that she does not get my live stream shut down.
Well, worst case scenario, we could always bring her on here for a duration of time.
That actually would be kind of fun. I'm going to be completely honest. Like I'm sure she could add a hell of a lot to this that we just would not it would come out of left field. Like that's actually one of the fun things about Jackie is that it's something like, I know you well enough that I should have expected this, but I was not expecting this.
Well, it fitted perfectly because we are all out of left field on this show. So
yeah. So but yeah, definitely go ahead and check that out. I can tell you all that just conversations that I've had with the author, he's not even exaggerating. He's talked about he could have up to like literally 10 seasons worth of content here. And I'm all for it. I really am.
So I'm going to throw this out to the listening audience and viewing audience and everything. If you happen to be an artist and work on graphic novel style type art, hit us up. Maybe we can get something worked out here. We already have several great artists working on a few things, but it never hurts to have more. And this could possibly turn into a commission gig for you. So hit us up. Definitely check out Valmont, the Black Raven Chronicles, season 1 dropping December 1st.
Yeah. So I guess moving on a little bit here. So I did send you a link earlier this week. We did talk about Rings of Power and everything.
Yes.
They have confirmed that the wizard in Rune is not Saruman. Which makes sense because this wizard is acting shady as fuck right now. I don't know if this show is intended to be canon to the movies, but whether it's canon to the movies, canon to the books, I don't care. Saruman's turn took Gandalf completely off guard. And I feel like if this was Saruman in the show, Gandalf should have been a little bit more suspicious. So I never thought that this was him. It does look like him, and I think that that was intentional. Honestly, they've already done a fake out on us twice in regards to Sauron.
Yeah.
Because first, this was the entire purpose behind Adar's character. We were thinking, is this Sauron? They established pretty quickly that it wasn't, but I think that that was intended to be our initial assumption. Then at the end of season 1, when the character who finally they named as Gandalf, they said, "Oh, you're Sauron." That was actually a really interesting episode because they had him going for a minute. Yeah. That was a really good fake out.
Well, I think, and if you really want to put this in from a writer standpoint or from a character standpoint, I want to really go with one of those things that it's like, yeah, they're faking him out that you're Sauron, but I want to put there that there's the possibility that that this character who is portraying Gandalf, that this character could have the potential to become a Sauron or a Sauron-esque type figure.
Well, they are both Maiar, so they absolutely could. And you know what? That's another one that I should have mentioned when we were on Jonathan's live stream the other day, and he's asking about like our favorite big monsters. I should have mentioned the Balrog as an honorable mention. I'm kind of surprised that I'm a little surprised at myself that I didn't think about it because the Balrog is fucking awesome.
I thought about it. I really did, but I mean, it seemed too easy.
That's fair. But I will say this for those of y'all who are a little bit younger and did not know about this, the Peter Jackson Balrog was a much better depiction than what we got in 1977. What I mean by that, if you are not aware of this, would be this fucker here. So those of you who are not aware of this, The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings, there was an animated movie of each of those, or animated adaptation.
That's a really catchy song too.
It did have a couple good ones. And actually the one that they did at the beginning of The Hobbit, Far Over the Misty Mountains, honestly, what they did in the live action is very, very close to what they did in the animated. And I believe it's actually pretty much what Tolkien wrote with the actual lyrics. But so as you can see here, that Balrog is not very, very terrifying. I'm looking for one where he was right next to. That's actually kind of cool, but that's not what they did.
No, that looks more graphic novel.
That is kind of cool, though. I will say that. Wait, does this one? So you can see some of the orcs behind him. He's not that much bigger. As opposed to the other Balrog, who was fucking massive, which in the Balrog that we all know.
There you go, right there.
This is actually, you know what? The one I just got is almost exactly this. I think it is more like a graphic novel / anime version. But this is fucking amazing. This is iconic.
Yeah, I kind of like the one that's got the Yggdrasil in the bottom left corner.
This one?
No. Yggdrasil, the Tree of Life, or whatever it's got. To me, it looks like Yggdrasil. The middle one.
Oh, that.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, that This is actually my wallpaper on my phone right now. This exact image. But yeah, so yeah, that does look a little bit like Yggdrasil. I'm pretty sure that that's intended to be the White Tree of Gondor, which honestly,
that makes sense.
Well, to be fair, I've mentioned this before. Every author has their inspirations. Tolkien does have some. He probably did base it on the depiction of Yggdrasil. He probably did. I think that he did a better job of making it original than what like George R.R. Martin did, because especially if you look back at George R.R. Martin's older works, like when he talked about the doom of Valyria, have you read anything about that or like watched a YouTube video or anything?
I've watched YouTube videos. Nothing against George R.R. Martin. I mean, it's great story and stuff like that, and they do cut out a lot for the television episodes and whatnot. But for him, Martin to me is a lot like Tolkien, and I don't have the attention span to read books over 10,000 pages.
Yeah. Well, where I was going with it is that if you look up the Doom of Valyria, which, for mind you, that is the Targaryens' original homeland. If you were watching the show, that was where Mormont got fucking what do they call it? It was like their version of leprosy. It was like grayscale or something.
Grayscale.
Grayscale. So when they're sailing through this fucking just desolation, that was Valyria, for those of y'all who don't remember. If you look at a description of it online, it comes very, very, very much off like Pompeii.
Okay.
So again, not a knock on George R.R. Martin. I do think that he did a really good job in building his lore, his world, and everything. Although I would wish you would finish your fucking series. I have accepted the fact he's not going to. He's going to die, and one of his sons is going to have to finish it.
Oh, we'll just let AI write it.
Honestly, that could go either way. But the point that I'm making, so I think Tolkien did a much better job of adapting a lot of other stories and everything than what some other authors have done. I don't know if I mentioned it here on one of our episodes, but I did an audiobook of the story, Thomas Covenant, the Unbeliever. It's a little bit like Narnia in that he was transported to another world. It's a little bit like Lord of the Rings, because the main villain, Lord Fowl, is not a human. He's not mortal. He appears like he's a mortal man, just like Sauron. But in truth, he is like this eternal spirit, just like Sauron. But the thing is, that book was written in 1977, where Lord of the Rings was known, it was popular, but it wasn't what it is today. So I think it was a little bit easier to borrow some of your ideas from stories like Narnia, from Lord of the Rings, and you don't get accused of plagiarism. I think his time, I think, was a little bit kinder to him.
Yeah, well, I mean, as a writer, it is very difficult to not get influenced by other people's works that are out there. You do your best not to plagiarize or copy. And like I've been working on a story since for like the last 25 years or so. And when Avatar the Last Airbender came out, I was upset because a lot of the way that I built the magic users in my world, in my story, were very similar to that of those who could bend, and it was like, oh my God, now if my thing ever comes out, now I'm ripping off, another story.
Right.
And it's one of those things, it's very difficult. And this was before I even knew that even existed, but it's very difficult not to borrow, because majority of authors out there don't mean to, step on somebody else's story or pull something else that is familiar. But it's very difficult not to borrow. I mean, because Tolkien went and created the entire Elvish language and did that. So I had to go for my story, create these languages myself. So I'm not ripping off, Tolkien. I mean, it's like it just gets to become one of those things that I want to say collectively borrowing.
Yeah.
In a way, but you don't want to step on that. And and any legitimate author, any writer, I want to say 99.9% of them don't do this on purpose. And if by chance this does happen, they're the first ones like, I didn't mean to do that. And however, I do appreciate the influence that they had on me as I honed my craft. And a lot of them, credit these authors for helping them develop and become who they are as a creator.
Well, and that's like, I remember I read something a while back. The band Creed, which I know they get a lot of shit. Don't come for me, y'all. I did actually enjoy them, at least the first 3 albums. I really didn't have anything after that. But I remember reading something that Scott Stapp and Mark Tremonti, which, by the way, Tremonti was an absolutely fucking phenomenal guitarist.
Yep.
Whether you like the band or not, Tremonti was fucking amazing.
Most underrated guitarist out there at the moment.
He was amazing. But Scott Stapp and Mark Tremonti mentioned that when they start writing for a new album, they do not listen to any music during the writing process. They do not listen to anything until they are done, because they want the album to be as pure as possible, meaning it is their own works. Now, say what you will about that I know some of y'all are going to hear this and say, well, maybe they should have stole. Look, you're entitled to your opinion. If you don't like him, you don't like him. But I do respect that, because that's a really difficult thing to do. Because, I mean, I imagine it probably takes a good 6 months at minimum to write that album. So to go all that time without listening to any music, that's a lot of dedication. That takes work. And I was going to mention, I know, like, another one, I don't know if this was intentional or not. We've already canvassed how much fuck Rowling. And you know what? Just to make sure that number stays at 0, Rowling, you're a cunt. But as much, so she did take a couple of things from Tolkien, intentionally or unintentionally. The Dementors, the movies, especially the Lord of the Rings movies, do not do a good job of depicting this. But the feeling that characters get around the Dementors is identical to what the Nazgul does to people around them. In the movies, they show that the Nazgul terrifies them. It doesn't show, if you've read the books, the Nazgul just empties people of anything but fear. Like, they're not just terrified. Everything is gone. Like, that is the Nazgul. And additionally, I didn't catch this until I saw the movies. The cave in Half-Blood Prince was almost spot on the Dead Marshes. Now, that one is a little bit more obvious, because if you go back and watch The Two Towers, especially when Frodo falls into the water and he sees these ghosts / bodies, whatever the fuck they are, when he looks at those, go back and watch the Half-Blood Prince. Watch when Harry was pulled under the water by all of these Inferi, I believe they were, because they didn't want to call them zombies, but they were zombies. It's the same fucking thing. Almost the exact same scene. I didn't catch it when I was reading, but when I actually saw the movie, I'm like, oh, yeah.
Yeah. And since we're still on Lord of the Rings and a little bit and whatnot, and the start of the Rings of Power, I'm hearing that we might be getting another Sauron recast.
It makes sense, because Sauron at this point is a shapeshifter. We've already seen him do it once, because he shifted from what was his name as Galadriel knew him. I can't remember his name, but he had the short hair, he had the little scruff and everything. And then the scene shifts, and now he's this elven looking character. God, I can't remember any of his aliases, but so we've already seen him shift a little bit, but he has to do it one more time, because if we're going to do the story properly, he has to go to Numenor. The Numenorians are already corrupted a little bit. Sauron has to tip that over. It's already falling. He has to give it that one final push, which means he has to be captured, and then he has to come up as an advisor. Now, for the purposes of the show, they will probably abbreviate that, because when you imagine they have the war with Sauron, they capture him, he's a prisoner, he somehow becomes an advisor. This is something that you imagine has to take a good 10 to 20 years, probably longer. The show doesn't have that kind of time frame. So they're probably going to abbreviate this a little bit, but he cannot go to Numenor under the same guise that he just killed Celebrimbor with. He has to be something else. So as much as I have enjoyed this actor, Charlie Vickers, I believe it was, yes. I've really enjoyed him in the role, but recasting is kind of necessary. I don't like it, but I understand it.
Yeah, nope. I wanted to get your takes on it and whatnot, and because that's what I've been reading into what's happening for season 3 of Rings of Power. So
we are getting season 3 though, so I'm happy about that.
Yes, it's going to be great. Hopefully it comes out sometime next year, and I don't have to wait till 2026, because next year I'm going to be filled with nothing but Marvel. So
which also, by the way, I know that the last time I talked about Agatha all along, I was knee deep in the show. I did finish it. The only criticism that I really have about it is that despite the show being called Agatha all along, Agatha was not the main character of the show. Wiccan was. This was a backdoor introduction to Wiccan. So it's a little bit of a fake out, but I'm okay with it. What I love about it is that after you get to the end of the show and you think back to the beginning of the show, you now understand why Agatha was not taking any of this shit seriously. Because she got clued in very early, like, this is kind of bullshit. So the fact that she took nothing seriously, her nonchalant attitude, it makes so much more sense.
No, absolutely. And, hats off to Catherine Hahn, who played that part perfectly, along with the rest of the cast and that crew. I mean, Aubrey Plaza and all of them, just phenomenal jobs. Great show. Probably one of the best Marvel Disney shows that have been put out, next to WandaVision, which that Agatha all along does tie into. But, I mean, honestly, I think it can stand alone. Just having a little bit of backstory on them, I think it can stand alone.
I would agree with that. Here's the one thing that I do like, and Marvel was really, really good about this for a while, where Marvel has so many properties that they were able to diversify the feel of it. This is very, very witch-oriented, and it doesn't feel like it's part of a comic book universe. Whereas Captain America: The Winter Soldier was a spy movie, ultimately. Guardians of the Galaxy was a sci-fi movie. Like, they had so many different elements, and they kind of got away from that a little bit. And I think that they're starting to find it again. If you're paying attention, you knew after Endgame, we were in a rebuilding phase. Phase 1 of Marvel was a little disjointed. We're looking back at it. We're comparing everything to Endgame, forgetting that Endgame was a culmination of 10 years. They took a while to string everything together too. Now, Eternals still doesn't fucking fit. I have no idea what the fuck they're doing with that. And nobody has even acknowledged that there's a giant fucking hand sticking out of the earth right now. That was a little weird. Moon Knight, you know what? I'm a little bit glad that we're pivoting. I liked Kang, and I wish that we were keeping it. But Moon Knight, what the fuck is Moon Knight gonna do against Kang? So I do think that, you know, it's a little bit better that we're finding other villains to fight. Moon Knight is a little bit more than street level because he does still actually have powers. But I mean, even if you introduce Moon Knight 5 years ago, 6, 7 years ago, the fuck is he going to do to Thanos?
Yeah.
Well, then again, what can he do that Hawkeye could? I mean, yeah, I guess.
All right, everybody. We appreciate you watching. Since we were just speaking about Marvel, which is owned by Disney, go out and enjoy Moana 2, which is going to be out tonight for the Thanksgiving holiday. I would have Eli play you off with some of his, Maui, but we don't have time for that. But anyway.
Unfortunately, I don't have the hair for it anymore.
Not anymore. Not yet, anyway. We can just probably grow it out. But anyway, thank you for joining us. We want to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving. Be safe and enjoy time and avoid the in-laws as much as possible.
Yes, and if you have to be around the in-laws, avoid the politics because it's just a headache. But otherwise, thank you for watching. As always, like, share, comment, subscribe. We appreciate it. And feel free to engage. You know, it gives us a little bit more to go off of. But thank you as always. Again, I'm just going to steal Jerry Springer's sign off. You'll just take care of yourselves and each other. Y'all be safe out there.
All right. Valmont's Black Raven Chronicles, December 1st, this Sunday.
Hope to see y'all there.
Have a good one, everybody.